hear me?
I bought this finger right machine for the time sheet. And 5 days before the paycheck, I need to go there and database is so stupid. I don't know who delivered it.
Okay, so let my workshop
For
begin.
me, I know secure, I know how to get
It's
the
a
data
session
prepared.
about
It was
React
very difficult
and
for
Onsen
me.
UI.
Oh, sorry.
And
Sorry.
here's the URL to my presentation. So if you're interested in just following me, maybe it's better for you to just open the same slide and just start reading in your own computer. So I would just spend like maybe 10 seconds for you guys to just copy this URL. So, okay. So about myself, I actually had a talk yesterday. So I guess most of you already know about me. I'm TANAKA from Monaca or Onsen. I based in Tokyo, Japan, and this is my second visit to Amsterdam. Actually, I'm also going to Paris the week after next week, so I'm kind of having 2 international trips this month, which is pretty unusual to me. I kind of like I'm still a developer. I'm writing many if you see my GitHub repo, you'll see a couple of my commits to Onsen UI in Monaca itself. But I also write quite many books for Cordova. Actually, it's a book you see PhoneGap Beginner's Guide. That was published 2010, and I guess this is the world's first PhoneGap book. It is published, and that's what we created. It was very difficult for me to write that book because PhoneGap was always changing, and I started writing this based on PhoneGap version 0.8, and now, and 2 months later, there was PhoneGap 1.0, and the APIs are kind of quite changed, and I need to follow up for Cordova document and PhoneGap communities. Those are something we're actively doing. This is more like a sales talk, so I don't want to say too much, but we have Monaca and we have Onsen. But today, I'm more focused on describing what is React and how you can create a React application, very simple one, using Onsen UI. Because React don't have any UI framework in it, so you have to use some of the UI, and some typical ones are like Material UI, which is for the material design wrapper for React, and Onsen UI is one other alternative UI toolkit for using React. And one more thing, for the source code, you can download from my repo, which is github.com/MASAHIRO-TANAKA/Onsen to React workshop. Maybe if you come to my GitHub repo, you will notice it. I'm actually pushing in the last minute, so you will see this repo on the very top. Please just clone it, and if you see tags, there are 6 tags I remember that I tagged for this workshop. So you can just check out each tags to see the latest to keep up with my typings or keep up with my source code. All right. So from here, I want to describe about React first. I would like to know how many people actually have already used React or have experience developing for React applications. Oh, okay, it's good because I was actually targeting this to somebody who don't actually have no experience for React. So yeah, that's good. It's a very quick introduction. Maybe I can provide more deeper description because it looks like there aren't so many people who have experience developing a React application. So here it is. Of course, I assume all of you guys have already know about React, and I think you're interested in that. I think that's because recently React is getting quite popular. Angular was very popular, and still it is the number one most popular framework. React looks like it's like kind of like number 2 tier, but it's actually not a framework. React is not a framework, but what they say is it is a library for creating user interfaces. React is not a full stack framework. If you have ever experienced Angular, Angular comes with all the necessary ingredients for creating Cordova or web applications, like routing, templating system, model, controller. React don't have those features. I mean, React actually provides like router in a different component, or maybe controller by using Redux, which is another stateless model controller execution engine for React. But React itself is not a framework. It's just a library, and what it does is it provides a view. So you can maybe it's like a template engine. But it's not a template engine. But if you know about handlebars, React is maybe kind of similar to it. It just output to the browser. So that's why it's very simple. But also, what is unique in React is that it has what we call virtual DOM. I will see the source code in a minute. But virtual DOM is the biggest, is the most important topic for dealing with React application, because you don't actually for jQuery or other libraries, it's a browser DOM. Browser has a DOM like div tag or span tag, and jQuery manipulates those DOMs and make the application dynamic. But React is not actually manipulating the DOM, but we are manipulating a virtual DOM, which will be rendered to a real DOM, which I will show you later. One more keyword for dealing with React, you need to understand JSX, which is it's like an XML like language to describe virtual DOM. If you want to get more information about React, you can go to the React website, but I'm going to cover most of the basic things today. So let's keep started. So what is virtual DOM is the first thing I need to describe you. So I quickly run an application and describe the Okay, so I'm running a React application. Please just hold on until the transpilation finish. It takes around 10 seconds. And I think I can provide you time to install and set up the development environment afterwards. So at this moment, please bear with me. Or you can just go ahead and just try whatever I write in the slide. Okay, coming up. All right, so this is a very simple React application, which I will describe in a later phase of this workshop. This is a very simple login page. Maybe I can increase a little bit. If you type in email and password and click on sign in, you will get an alert message. This is made of React. And I need to describe what is the difference between virtual DOM and the real DOM. So I want to inspect this application, because if you inspect, you will understand what is the difference. This is a normal inspector, as you see in the Google Chrome. This is a this is nothing special. You see a body tag, you see, well actually this is made of onsen, so there's onSpage tag, but you just consider this is a normal like tag, and like div tag and tour tag or whatever. So this is the actual DOM, and there are like CSS styles attached to it. I'm actually installing a special extension called React Dev Tools, so that's why there is a React tab here. When I click on this, I will get the React virtual DOM hierarchy over here. If you see this, there is a login page, and inside that there is a div. Actually, this div has the same name as the HTML div, but it's a React component version of div tag. And there's a page, and underneath the page there's onSpage and toolbar and div. It's very similar to the actual DOM, but this is how the React is containing all the information in memory, and React is rendering based on this virtual DOM information to the browser DOM. So that's why what we do as an application, we manipulate this virtual DOM, and React will automatically render the change to the real DOM. Why virtual DOM is important is because what we need to do as an application is we just manipulate the virtual DOM. React knows which virtual DOM part corresponds to which real DOM fragment. So that's why when React is capable of, React is actually putting all the attributes called key to each element. So that's why React knows if we change any portion of the virtual DOM, it will be automatically reflected to the real DOM. So that's why the application don't have to care about what the real DOM will look like, but we just have to care about the virtual DOM. And because the virtual DOM is a hierarchy of React components, it's very easy for the developers to deal and manipulate those DOM elements. Maybe it's a little bit difficult to understand at this stage, so I'm going to go ahead and I think you will get why virtual DOM is very good after this workshop. So the first example I want to describe is a Hello World version of React. So let me just have time to prepare for this. I'm going to go React. So if you clone, there is a couple of tags. If you do git checkout step 1 Hello World, you will get the Hello World example. Okay, and I'm running this application. So Hello World application is very simple React version of Hello World. This coming up. That's right. Okay, so it just displays Hello React. But this application has a kind of like essential component when describing about React itself. So index HTML, as you see here, there's nothing special except there is a script tag which is including file called this.js, which is transpiled, which is a compiled JavaScript based on the source code, which I will show you later. There is one more div tag with ID name application app, which is actually the place where React will inject the virtual DOM information and convert it into a real application. So let's go ahead, and I want to describe about the source code itself. So this source code sits in a directory called source. If you see the tutorial, so I'm going to open that in Sublime Text. And this is the actual source code. This is actual source code that you see. So I'm going to describe what it is written afterwards, but as you see, this is called main.js, and this will be transpiled into this JS, which is in double order. This is a very long line of code because I'm using Browserify in this case to combine all the React and React DOM component into this main source code and transpiling it and concatenating. So that's why this JS is very huge file. And index.html is loading this JS, and that is how this application is made of. So I'm going to describe how this main.js file is composed. So it can be separated into three parts. The first part is importing part, where you import React and React DOM. Previously, actually, there was no module called React DOM, but recently they separated and created another package called React DOM. So we have to include two packages from the React team. One is React and one is React DOM. This is actually, this will be transpiled, so that's why this is not a normal JavaScript that maybe you are familiar with, because we cannot use require in a web context. That's why we need to transpile this and make it available in a web context. The second section is creating a React component by using React.createClass function, which I will also describe later. But just an introductory. What it does is it's creating component called hello, and then over here, React DOM, which is a React package, will render this hello component into the element which has a ID of app, which was the only div tag exists in the index.html. So what we do as a developer, first we require, and then we create a component, and we inject that component in a render. That's the way to write a React application. And this is very simple, but I want to describe a little bit more about this. So first, I want to describe about JSX. As you see here, those blue texts are represented as JSX. Again, JSX is the way to describe the virtual DOM in React. And in this case, you see there is a hello component, and we are passing React as a prop. What we say prop, and the prop name is name. So hello name is React is transferred, is actually sent to this hello function, and then in the render, we are actually referring props over here under this.props.name. So that's why the application is displaying hello React based on this consequence. And for React component, this is also very you can create any React components and you can name it. And React components are what we say composable. So you can include another component into the component. So as I see in the previous example, there was a chain of components. It's like a DOM tree. It's a virtual DOM tree, which is composed of React. All the DOM trees are, virtual DOMs are composed of React components. So in this case, we are defining a component called hello, and this hello component is returning a div component, and actually what we have to do over here is create a render function, and render function is a function that the component will return back to the application and render that, and the React will use this when rendering the component. And also props. Over here in the render function, as I said, there is a way to pass the attributes or props to another component, and in this example, if you see there is a prop called name, and this prop will be transferred, will be passed to this hello component, and we can refer the prop name over here using this dot props. So it's attributes, but a little bit different than attributes, because on React it's not only the strings, but you can pass arrays or objects or maybe functions, or well, actually almost anything that JavaScript can represent. So in this case we are passing a string, but it can be a function, or it can be an array or object. So props are very strong way, very strong, and we can use props to transfer data to components below. Okay, so that's a very basic introduction of Hello World, and now I'm going to step on to a more complicated example. But I don't know if you guys have any questions by this point. If there is any, I want to explain a little bit more. Is there anything you wanted to ask? Okay. Oh yeah.
I had a question to
Yeah.
a colleague yesterday.
Yeah.
You're always writing the HTML templates inside the file.
Templates inside the file.
Yeah, it's always inside the component. You can't externalize it. So write the HTML file extern, place it extern.
You mean so this? You mean HTML?
And show me the component again.
Here.
Hello World class. So
Yeah.
if you have that class, you have the HTML directly inside that component.
Yeah.
So you always do it in React.
Right. So this is not a HTML. I mean, yeah, this looks
like
really like a HTML. Yeah, this is a JSX style. So actually, JSX is not a HTML or not a string. This is actually not a string. This is a XML representative JavaScript. So this is actually a JavaScript. JSX is actually optional. I wonder if there is a good example for that. So yeah, this is here. So if you see this JS fiddle, it's calling React.createElement, and this is the same as we write in JSX. Then hello. Props. So it's same as this. So JSX actually allows the developer to write the component structure in an instinct way, but it's actually a JavaScript. So if you don't want to use JSX, you can use create element to. And this is the actual JavaScript. So in this case, you don't have to use JSX. But because it is very difficult for us to write in this way, so that's why they embedded something like a JSX, and you can embed. But you cannot actually. So this is not a HTML. So you cannot write this anywhere in index.html or any other HTML files. That's kind of very weird in the beginning. Is that we're always told that view and the logic should be separated. But in React, their philosophy is kind of, it's upside down. Like, we have to. It is not a view. It is a component, and component have to be defined in a JavaScript, literal. So So all the JavaScript source code have has this kind of index, this kind of HTML representative inside the logic, but that's how the React team is preferring, and that's how we are get used to it. And there is a benefit of doing it because previously it was very difficult to to decorate the HTML just by using CSS, but nowadays it's very easy for the developer to actually separate the view by using CSS only. So that's why the component itself can be very minimalized.
Got a question. You can base a component on other components as well?
Yes, you can include other components in a component. I mean, all the JSX are components. So if you have like span tag here, it's not a span tag, but it's a span component in a React. So if you create another component, you can of course have a hierarchy. But what you cannot do, there's only one thing you cannot do in JSX is returning multiple React components in one return sentence, which means in this case, so it's same as XML. XML only can have one core element, and JSX also can only have one element. So this is grammarly invalid because there are two div tags returning to the parent.
But you can wrap a div around it, and then it's okay.
Yeah. Of course you can of course wrap this in a span tag, and then you're good. But, yeah. So those are some like little glitches in JSX. Actually, there's one more glitch which I didn't describe, but if you see here, there is a prop called class name. It's not called attributes anymore, so that's why I'm calling this prop. But there's a property called class name, which is a representative, which actually will be converted to HTML's class attribute. But because class is a reserved keyword in JavaScript, that's why we cannot use attribute called class. That's why they renamed it to class name.
It's more specific to ES6. Then class is a reserved word in
Oh
JavaScript.
yeah,
Not yet
for
in
ES6.
because that doesn't run in our browsers yet.
Yeah, that's true. And same as for. For is also a reserved keyword, so that's why they name like HTML4 for the representative for the React component. But anyways, those are some little things you might have to understand. All right. So those are the basic informations for React. And from here, I want to move on to another example. And after this example, I would like you guys to also, come with me and do some work and run your own application using React. This example is what I want to describe the state, which is also a very important idea for React. So I'm going to check out step 2 calendar. All right, and there it is. Okay, so this is the next example. This is just a simple counter application, which when I click on this button, the number will increase. This means this application have a state of counter, which needs to be preserved. As I mentioned before, Virtual DOM itself doesn't have any state. That's why, and actually, we cannot actually save the state, store the state in the real DOM as well. That's why React team have come up with something called state. So in this example, this is a counter application which have 3 functions. Besides render function, there is an onClick function and get initial state function. First, I want to describe about render function. So it only have one span and one button, And in the bottom, it will trigger on-click function when a click is triggered. And then there is a counter variable displayed over here, which is referring from this dot state. So actually, this dot state dot counter is a place where the actual counter variable is stored. And where this is initialized is over here in a get initial state function. This is also a special function used in React, which React will call this function when the component is initialized. So this function is returning 0 number counter, and that actually initializes the counter value. And each time on-click function is triggered, it will create a new state which is having a new counter, incrementing a counter, and then it's calling set state function, which is refreshing the new counter value and tells the React to re-render. The important thing over here is that this set state function actually calls render function again. So it's not like Angular, which have a two-way binding. Actually, React don't have something called binding, but it's doing something very similar to binding, because we can call render function anytime, anywhere. And for AngularJS applications, it is not possible to render everything because AngularJS don't have the virtual DOM. That's why AngularJS don't know which to render. But for React, everything is stored in a React way. So that's why React knows only which portion have to be re-rendered, which is very efficient. That's why even like we're calling this set state everywhere, it is super fast. And if it doesn't result in rendering, it doesn't result in changing a DOM element, then React will not do anything. So there's no flickering. React will just only change over here, even though we don't say change only here. And that's the beauty of React. So why virtual DOM is important is because you don't need to specify where you have to render. You just say render again, everything, and React will just render where React thinks we have to render. And by using this state, you can store all the application configurations or something that needs to be that needs to be stored in a state storage can be maintained, and that's the way. That's how you're using you're handling with React. So this get initial state and this set state function is very important. And you will see many states if the application is getting larger and larger. So if you don't model architect properly, maybe it may be a little bit difficult for you to manage all the state, because it's going to be like a spaghetti code. So that's why React is also introducing a model called Flux, or there's a Redux library that's implemented using the Flux idea, and that's actually the way to store the data in a state and render appropriately. So this is the state description. So from here, I think it's good that everybody here can just try out. But before then, I want to also once again tell how the React source code will be compiled and created as a distribution. So main.js, which I show, of course, had a require or maybe like JSX literal, which normal JavaScript cannot handle. And for JSX, Babel will transpile that to normal ECMAScript. So Babel will transform the JSX into just real JavaScript elements. And Browserify will handle all the require stuff regarding from Node.js, another Node.js modules and make it and concatenate those modules into a distribution package. And that distribution code in this example is this.js will be included in script tag and embedded into index.html. So this is how you do when you want to manually transpile this application. You have to do npm install and install Browserify, React DOM, Babelify, and Bubble preset React. And if you're using ECMAScript 2016, you also have to include Bubble ECMAScript 2016 to have a transpiler option. And if you want to compile this main.js, you will execute Browserify with Babelify, which is kind of like it's kind of like for me at the first glance, I was having hard time understanding what's the difference between Babelify and Browserify, but now I understand. And compile from main.js to this.js. So this is how you do in command line. But for Onsen UI, we have transpiler tool shipping with Onsen UI, and that's the way to that's a recommended way for us because it also provides the debugging and also the CSS styling support. So that's why I don't tell so much about this Browserify thing. But this is the actual workflow if you want to create a React application from scratch. So from here, I want to describe a little bit of Onsen UI. So Onsen UI is, as I mentioned, this is a framework agnostic library, but it also supports React development support. And by doing that, if you want to catch up with me, I would like you to just install a command called Monaca by running npm install -g Monaca. And once you do that, you are able to start creating a new application by running Monaca create command. So I don't know how many people will follow me, but I'm just trying to just demonstrate how it works. So I already have a Monaca command. Just run create workshop sample. If you type in Monaca create workshop sample, which means it's same as Cordova command. It will create a directory called workshop sample, but a little difference from Cordova command that it's for Onsen UI. So Monaca command is asking which Onsen UI version or what kind of framework you want to use with Monaca. Oops. Time out. Maybe this PhoneGap Wi-Fi is not working. We are taking the starter kit from internet, so internet connection is required for listing up the project. I'm switching over to my mobile. Okay, so it's asking like which one you want to start creating with. I click on Onsen UI in React, and then it will ask you some basic templates you can start with. If you maybe this time is a minimum. If you click on minimum, it will download template, and also it will install dependencies, and also it will install the build requirements like Babelify or Browserify. So it will take like actually 1 or 2 minutes because npm installation is too big. So I'm just keeping this here, and I'm going to continue for the workshop. So Monaca CLI, I don't want to also describe too much into Monaca CLI, but it has tons of features. One of the most useful, most frequently used feature is preview command, which I show. It just opens up the browser, and on the background it waits for the source code to be changed, and it will be transpiled if there's a React application. there is some other commands that will be useful, like Monaca debug command, which the application will be transferred to a real device, and you can run the source code with a livelihood feature in a real device using Monaca debugger. Or there's Monaca remote build, which you can start remote build to our cloud, or something like that. Or there's even like Monaca upload, which you can upload your source code into our cloud, and you can use our browser-based IDE to further developing the application. So there are many CLI usage for that. Yeah, looks like it's still installing build dependencies. So I'm going to describe about Hello Onsen UI example here. So this is a Hello World version of Onsen UI version of Hello World. We just got this because it's not important now. Git checkout. Okay. Okay, so this is a Hello World. It's just a Hello World, but composed of Onsen UI elements. If you tap it, you will see the alert notification, which is also drawn by Onsen UI. So if you see this, this is the actual source code of Hello World example. The difference is that we are requiring Onsen UI on the first part, on the top part of the source code. We need two modules. One is Onsen UI, which is the core element of Onsen UI, and also React Onsen UI package, which is like binding for React extensions. So we need both. I mean, we don't need this Onsen UI package if we are not referring anything, but in this case, we are using this for showing the alert message over here. So that's why we need the proper Onsen package. There is a render function, and in the render function, there is onStop-page component, which is the Onsen version of a page. Or there's onSButton, which is a button that is equivalent to HTML's button, but provides unique mobile UI features. And when the button is clicked, it's calling onStop notification, which is the Onsen UI version of displaying a dialog message. Other than that, this is totally same as the previous Hello World example. And something about this. I told you before that installing React Dev Tools in Chrome would very help you understanding how the React components is constructed. Again, if I open this example in a React Dev Tool, you will see exactly the same thing as before. Like there is a page element, and then there is a button element which represents Onsen UI, and inside that is a onSButton element. So you will see, and you can search by component name here, and you can also see the props, and this is extremely useful if you're starting to actually work on developing a React application. Because you cannot actually see the virtual DOM just by looking at this actual DOM. All the virtual DOM informations are disappearing. That's why you need to have a React console in order to see the actual, the virtual DOM. So I'm going to tell you some basics for Onsen UI. I think by now you have some sort of understanding of how the React application is composed. And we have many components in Onsen UI, so that's why it's very hard for me to describe everything. All the components are in the reference. If you go to our reference page, there are 4 categories, and under React you have the React version of all the components. And if you want to actually try using how to develop, using React components. We have an interactive tutorial for that. So it's a very good way to learn how to use Onsen UI with React. So some of the and from here I'm just copying all from tutorial. So I'm just opening here. So you just click on React and use a reference. I first want to describe our page. So page is a component to represent a page, and page can have a toolbar, and it can be distinguished. So the toolbar have left, center, and right. So if you have right and just run, you have a right component over here, and you can combine with like ons icon and I forgot. And you can have a beautiful icon. Oh, yeah, there's no, I don't know what the icon name we have, but if you use ons icon, you can display icon over here as well. And every onsen page have to be wrapped with ons page element. And there is a render toolbar prop, which tells what kind of toolbar you have to render. And this render toolbar is the function which is defined over here, that's returning ons toolbar element component that represents a toolbar. And more complex example is page navigation. Page navigation is very complex because we need to it's stack navigation. It's very important because it's a very common user experience for mobile applications. But this is the beauty of single page application. But it's getting a little bit complex. So I'm just going to quickly describe how this is done. So when you click on push page, maybe it's a little bit small, so maybe difficult to read this. There's a method called push page, which you can push another page to the navigation component. And this push page will trigger a new route, which is returned over here with a new title. So in this example, we are reusing all the same page element. So that's why the page itself doesn't change, except this title. But of course, you can customize and change and do a different page in a different, when the push pages happen. And I'm not going to describe a little bit, more detail about this because it takes, more than this to describe. The another example is like infinite scrolling. It's also have it over here. It actually have many items, but it just renders flawlessly, which is a power of lazy repeat. And on this case, you're using ons.lazyRepeat component, and you can specify how many items we have and what to do for each rendering for each rows, and Onsen UI will and React automatically calculates based on the infinite scroll value. And well, there are many tutorials other than this. If you go to the tutorial website, you will see many UI examples. And something interesting maybe for you is like speed dial, which is this is mostly used in the Android device, but also works in iOS. Splitter, which is like a menu bar navigation, hamburger navigation. This is also capable, and we have various tutorials for them. So you can actually take a look, take read for this description and more understand how it works, the components. So from here, I think my class ends off. in 8 minutes. So I'm quickly go through the sample source code I created. I mean, we have two. I created two sample codes. I mean, I asked the team to create two sample codes, and one is very small, and one is very big. The bigger one he created is because I said to create a sample application for workshop, but I didn't say how many hours I will spend for this workshop. So he assumed I'm spending like 8 hours for this workshop. So that tutorial is very long. So it's very hard for me to describe. So that's why I created another sample. I asked him to create a very simple example. Before doing it, I need to describe a little bit for ECMAScript 6. So maybe you are familiar with using ECMAScript 5, which is up-to-date version, which is legacy version of JavaScript. And now things are moving forward to ECMAScript 6. React guys actually suggest to use ECMAScript 6 because the source code can get much simpler and much more easier to read. And one of the features for ECMAScript 6 is change from require to import. Actually, require is a Node.js dependency. So import is a way to do for ECMAScript 6. So if you're writing ECMAScript 6, there's import function. And then you can now create a class, not like a prototype. Class hello extends React component. So this is the ECMAScript 6 way to define a React component. And you have a constructor, and also you have a render function, which is slightly different from what we used to write in JavaScript. And then there is a simple form application that I want to demonstrate, and I think this runs. I think I can make my time to describe everything over here. So I'm opening. Loading samples. Maybe I forgot to install dependencies. So this is a simple login form application. Maybe I can just open just over here. This is a source code. And I want to describe the importance of this, the details for this. But before then, I think it's better to describe some additional things it is written in the source code. So first, the import keyword is used for importing React and React DOM. But for React Onsen UI module, we are importing specific components from React Onsen UI. This is a suggested way for React team to do, so that's why we are following that rule. So in this case, this page button, toolbar, icon, input, those components are from React Onsen UI. So those are the Onsen UI components. And by doing this, you don't have to use ons.dot prefix, but you can just embed toolbar, page, toolbar button, just like a HTML tag. Second thing is what we call template. This is also a ECMAScript 6 feature. If you see some source code over here, it's not a single quote. It's a backtick, and you can embed JavaScript string variable like this, similar to like PHP or Ruby or Perl. You can do this. This is a new feature. This is very handy, so I recommend at least using this for ECMAScript 6. One more thing, shorthand version of anonymous function. We are using this in some place. That's why over here, render toolbar. So this is a shorthand version of defining a function. So you can do something like like bracket and then equals greater than then bracket braces. Or you can even create a more shorthand version. In this case, we're using this in a map function. S is s.length, which is like very minimum, and ECMAScript 6 will return the last evaluated value if there's no return element. So return a keyword. So in this case, s.length will be returned. So by reading those, by looking at those, I think you're able to run this code and understand. Maybe I'm recording something. I don't know what's happening here, but it actually worked. Cannot find what it is. Sorry, I'm going to debug this afterwards. Lack of time, but you can just take a look at this source code and you will understand how it is made. But there is one more complex to-do application, which is much bigger than this, and I want to conclude by running this application. I guess this should also work.
Excuse me? 5 more minutes.
Okay. Same thing. Oh, now I understand why. It's my fault. What I did, I actually stopped while installing the build dependencies when installing the template. So that actually, I think that's the reason. What I did, after created project, and I set React and React minimum. It's actually downloading a template, and actually it's setting up the build environment. What I did was I actually killed the process when setting up the dependencies. So that's why I think Monaca command is now corrupting. So if you do this, please do not put Control-C while installing the build dependencies. I think the Monaca command don't have the browser file included in it right now. So I'm just waiting for Monaca command to refresh the build environment. Until then, I'm going to open to-do application. And actually, I realized that we can actually run this to the application by going to this is the base code, and it's actually also published in a GitHub page. So maybe we can look at the GitHub from the GitHub page for the actual application. Sorry, the connection is slow. should. I cannot actually hit Control C anymore because I need to wait until these dependencies finish downloading and installing in my computer. So maybe the best bit I can do here is describe some of the features that we created into this 2D application. Yeah.
Probably you could show us how to build a nested component.
Nested component. Yeah. That's
I think that would be interesting.
okay. So nested component, maybe usual HTML, like there is a page element and inside that is a list element. So you just
And how is it defined? Defined
Yeah.
by class name?
yeah. So you can include any React components in a JSX context. Everywhere. Like
Nothing
in
more.
JSX. Hmm?
Nothing more.
Nothing more. It's very simple. Yeah, it's just HTML. So yeah, if you take a look at this example, this has like 10 components, and we have 4 pages, and you have a insert and delete and update feature and list feature. So I think this example has everything in it, which is required. So it's pity that it's coming, but it's still installing dependencies. So yeah, please apologies, but yeah, I need to make this finish. Otherwise, I cannot have the building environment. I wonder if you guys have any questions or anything you would like to ask me. I just, actually, I have one more question. I know that I think that some of you are actually very interested in using React, but are you? Can I know if you already using Angular 1 or Angular 2? How many of you? That's good. Do you guys all think that you guys want to switch over to React or just interesting? Depends.
Try it out.
Yeah. I think React is far less features than Angular. It's only have a view part, but the view part is very strong. And even Angular 2 is thinking to have a virtual DOM feature in Angular 2. So maybe in that case, Angular 2 can be also competitive as React. But yeah, you have to use some additional libraries in order to create a full stack to have a full stack framework. But I guess it's worth learning at least what is React and how it is different from other libraries.
I'm sorry, but we will
Okay.
have to stop.
Sorry. Yeah. Thanks so much. So I'm still working on this, but yeah, I think you can just try out and give me feedback if there's anything. That's end. So thank you so much, and have a